The Vivo V30 is a pretty solid deal into what Vivo can deliver with no 2 megapixel inside. But what if you add one extra camera and make all of those as well 50 megapixels instead of just 2? And of course add some spice on it with some Zeiss flavor. So how does the Vivo V30 Pro compare to the Vivo V30? Let's find out in this video. But first, let's go through the specs. So let's have a look at the hardware. With the Vivo V30 it comes with two 50 megapixel cameras. The main camera has a 1.9 aperture and a 1/155 inch sensor size. And the 50 megapixel ultra wide comes with a 1/2.76 inch sensor size and an f-stop of 2.0. Where with the Vivo V30 Pro, while the ultra wide is the same, the main sensor is a 1/149 inch sensor size, and of course we get that extra sensor, the telephoto. That is a 50 megapixel sensor with a 1/2.51 inch sensor size. Of course this is a 2x zoom. There's also a notable difference in terms of specs. You get the same 512 GB of memory as max capacity, but it is UFS 2.2 for the Vivo V30, where you get UFS 3.1 for the Pro. This means that the memory is faster. And of course there's a difference in terms of CPU. You get the Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 for the Vivo V30, where you get the Dimensity 8200 for the Vivo V30 Pro. And those are the main differences. But what does this size collab mean? What does it mean for the results? Let's find out in this comparison.
Now again, when it comes to phones, they have their limitations, right? So I always try to find a point of focus or something that kind of puts a blur in the shot itself. This, for instance, is a great thing to have a blur on. So we're gonna go to photo with this. I feel like a little bit of zooming in, because the main thing when it comes to these phones is, of course, the main sensor is technically an ultra wide. So therefore I would say having a little bit of zoom in it would be better, without a doubt. And why I put it also like this, because it just gives a little bit more of an attention to what I'm shooting. Having too much in the shot itself kind of makes it a distraction for me. And therefore I would say often I try to find something that allows a point of focus. Here, for instance, what I could do is have the grass a little bit, right, so that could be a really cool shot. Then to focus away from the grass itself as followed, and create shots like so. Now the bridge itself, of course, is a point of interest, but also behind it. But I'll try to look something here, portrait of course, no use. But can have a point of focus or other things, less of it. Maybe I can connect it a little bit like this. Gives a little bit of blur to this. So again, you know, with the phone you have less depth of field naturally.
Now the rest of the video will be narration style, so I can showcase more of the differences between the two in terms of approach, starting inside this church. And while natural in terms of colors look very similar, the Vivo V30 has quite a bit more contrast to the shot. Slightly less bright as well, and also a tad better control of highlights and contrast. This allows the shot to feel a bit more detailed than the regular V30. And because of these slight differences in terms of approach, it gives the V30 Pro more depth. It gives the shot a bit more proper natural look, and it gives a better separation compared to the Vivo V30, which is really important on mobile phones because of course they do still have a limit in terms of sensor sizes. But I have to give it to both of these. When it comes to comparing the main sensor to the ultra-wide between both of these devices, I will say Vivo has done a good job calibrating the lenses of each phone to each other. Meaning if you use for instance the main sensor on the Vivo V30, the shot will look similar to what you would get on the ultra-wide. The same goes for the Vivo V30 Pro as well, of course. So great calibration when it comes to these sensors and having that possibility to switch around while still getting a similar look and style. Also using portrait in the shot, I would say that the Vivo V30 Pro stands out a bit more. The blur is a bit more natural and also better control over the light that is at the back, feeling more balanced than on the Vivo V30. And of course with the Vivo V30 Pro you do get that extra telephoto for the portraits as well, though I would say it looks a bit softer than I would like it to be. And of course the zoom is also beneficial in shots on the beach. While the difference isn't much, I would say in daytime photography, there is still a noticeable difference. A bit more detail, a bit better managed, and that's simply because it's optical on the Vivo V30 Pro, where it's digital on the Vivo V30.
Alright, 4K 30 frames per second on both the V30 and V30 Pro. V30 Pro, by the way, can record at 4K and 60 frames per second, and the front-facing camera with the V30 cannot. There's a difference in terms of that as well. Color difference as well. V30 definitely brighter. 30 Pro, sorry. Now this is a good noise test though. Let's see how they both work in terms of that. In terms of noise cancellation. There's a little button we're gonna use in a bit. See the difference? It seems like the regular V30 is a bit warmer, at least on the phone itself. There are some color differences, that's for sure. I would say on the display that the V30 Pro is the better one in terms of how things look. It's a bit sharper it seems, but there are raindrops on my screen, so don't take that as the final note for it. Now when it comes to the ultra wide, while the V30 Pro can record up to 4K 30 frames per second, the ultra wide on the V30 cannot. And it's getting really windy now, so hopefully you can still hear me. My hands are getting really cold. Every single time I go to the beach, my hands are getting bloody cold. Lovely.
Now let's move to low light photography, showcasing the difference between these two. So when it comes to the Vivo V30 Pro, the main sensor has better control of light sources, giving a bit better dynamic range. However, funny enough, in some cases the Vivo V30 does better when it comes to the ultra wide sensor. But the sky does look better on the Vivo V30 Pro. It's darker and less noisy compared to the regular Vivo V30. Which also has a very different profile in terms of colors, and this difference in terms of color is something that you're seeing between these two the whole time, and it shifts sometimes between which one is a little bit more natural, with it sometimes being too cold on the Vivo V30 Pro and sometimes too warm on the Vivo V30. The balance is somewhat in between, but because of the bit warmer feel, I do feel like sometimes the Vivo V30 does better than the Vivo V30 Pro. I would say in low light, the Vivo V30 simply holds its own against the Vivo V30, and that's more praise towards the Vivo V30 than it is a knock against the Vivo V30 Pro. And of course, here a shot in low light using our light, I would say definitely use this. It's a really nice balanced light compared to, for instance, a normal flashlight. This allows the light to be more soft and therefore give proper focus on the statue itself without having those hard lights.
4K 30 frames per second again. Definitely there's a big difference in approach. Like for instance, look at that sound difference already. Oops. And much brighter, at least on the phone itself. On the Pro. Just as an ending for 4K 30 frames per second. We can record to 4K 30 frames per second with ultra wide as well, where you cannot with the V30. The V30 Pro does allow that.
At the end, the Vivo V30 versus the Vivo V30 Pro, there are some different situations where I feel like definitely the Vivo V30 Pro does better. The natural look is definitely just a tad better than what you get on the Vivo V30, and I do prefer having that a little bit more contrast. It allows the shot to have somewhat more of a depth to the shot itself compared to what you get on the Vivo V30. And I wouldn't say that you miss out on a lot when you buy the Vivo V30 instead of the Vivo V30 Pro, but there are some things where it definitely performs better. As stated, you do have that extra camera, you do have that Zeiss collaboration, and it does allow for some features to just be a little bit better than on the Vivo V30. But overall, if you get the Vivo V30, you get a good camera experience, especially for the price, with good dynamic range for a phone around this price. I'm quite surprised about what you get for the Vivo V30, and of course if you want just that tad more, the Vivo V30 Pro will deliver that as well. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video comparing the Vivo V30 and the Vivo V30 Pro. Let me know what you think about both of these and which one has your preference. Either way, hope you enjoyed, and of course if you did, don't forget to subscribe, like and everything, and talk to you guys in the next.